God, indivisible, with liberty and
Justice for all.
Thank you.
I'm going to call the March 4th, 2019 Town Council meeting to order. And will the clerk call the roll?
Cal Ellis is absent. Frank Di Gregorio.
Here?
Mike Khan.
Here.
Manny Andrews.
Here.
And Dan Patterson is also absent.
Next is public comment. Comments are not limited to items on this agenda. However, items not on this agenda will only be heard and not acted upon by the town council unless they are of an emergency nature. A 3-minute time limit per item, 15-minute maximum time allowed for this agenda item. No one's stepped up to speak the commentary period. Hopefully this will be an early night, that's a good omen.
Don't put the jinx on us, Frank.
Item number 4 is under acknowledgements and announcements. We have 4 items, and I shall read them one at a time. The Exeter dog licensing due annually April 1st through June 1st, $6. After June 1st, $6 per license, plus $25 late fee per license. So obtain an Exeter Animal Shelter or Exeter Town Clerk's office. Can I obtain them there, both places, I think.
Yeah.
Second item is the rabies clinic. The Exeter Animal Shelter, Sunday, April 7th, 2019, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. $12 cash only. Current rabies certificate required. Leashes are required for dogs, and carriers required for cats.
Maybe they're gonna let the attorney vote.
Item C is the Exeter West Greenwich School District all-day referendum. That's Monday, April 8th, 7th, 8 p.m. Council chambers. The Exeter Clerk's Office, 67510 Rod Road,
No, it's
Exeter, Rhode
okay.
Island.
We'll share it. Good enough. We can share it.
And the final announcement is the Exeter Fire District. The annual budget meeting is Wednesday, April 10th, 2019, at 7 p.m. at the Exeter West Greenwich Junior Senior High School, Joseph Walsh Performing Arts Center, which is the auditorium, at 930 Nooseneck Hill Road, West Greenwich, Rhode Island. Next will be the approval of the agenda order. Anybody, any different? Not hearing any, follow the agenda order as
Motion.
advertised in the,
I'll second the motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is the approval of the consent agenda. And does anybody, let's start. Andy, do you have any you want to pull?
I do not.
Pull 4, 22, 29, 31, 36.
Is this a communications? Is this communications? Can you repeat that, please?
Repeat that again for me, please.
4,
Yep.
22, 29, 31, 36.
We're talking about communications.
Yes, and I'm sorry. I replied in the negative on communication, but I do have communication I'd like to pull. Are we there yet?
I know, I thought we were going to pull a report. Right?
Yeah, these were on the reports, not the communications to the top of the gun. I wanted to pull number 4, tax collector. Anybody else under the reports? I'm also gonna pull number 15, North Kingstown Preserve at Rolling Greens. Now we'll take the communications.
Still got those?
No, take them again, I didn't write them down.
4,
Go ahead.
22, 29, 31, and 36.
Annie?
Like I said earlier, 5, you can make it that reserve, but I'd like to pull 5 and also 29.
I don't have any that I'm gonna pull. schedule of March meetings and events. Nothing on that. The approval of the minutes. We have a motion to approve the,
Move that we approve the minutes, Mr. President.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's approved. Under vacancies and appointments, we have, under vacancies is Personnel Board members, Conservation Commission, and the Economic Development Commission.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda, Mr. Vice
As
President.
amended.
As amended.
As amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next we have vacancies, appointments, and we have under vacancies, Personnel Board members, Conservation Commission, and the Economic Development Commission. Nothing on that? Nothing under resignations. Under appointments, we have Special Constable, which is, we're gonna hold off until we hear from Constable Donovan, Sergeant Donovan. Then we have the Juvenile Hearing Board member, and we have some.
We have Lori Hauser who wishes to be reappointed, and we have Frank Carrera who wishes to be reappointed. And then you have that memo from Cal about.
Casey Artis. He had requested that he could be appointed, he requested to be appointed as more than one board.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant.
I think in talking with Cal, he had felt that the Juvenile Hearing Board would be the best suit for him. Do we want to wait for Cal to come back, or can we vote on that now?
It's up to you. Cal's memo suggested that you forward it to the handbook.
For their opinion? And should we wait on Lori House and Frank Carrera, or can we vote on them tonight?
You can vote on them if you wish.
I move that we reappoint those two individuals to the Juvenile Hearing Board, Mr. Vice President.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any discussion?
I don't think so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Lori Hauser and Frank Carrera are appointed to the, reappointed to the Juvenile Hearing Board, and we'll refer Casey Artis to the Juvenile Hearing Board for their opinion. Under D, we have expiring terms. Scope Miller, Town Constable, expiring April 2nd. Tom Allen, Special Constable, expiring April 2nd. Then we have Janelle Bond on the Rural Land Conservation Trust Committee, and John Bradley, also the Rural Land Conservation Trust Committee, both expiring March 31st, 2019. Have we received anything from any of them?
No,
Send the
in
letters.
this case, we usually send a notice of expiring term and post it in the event that those four people do not want to be reappointed.
Do we need a motion for that, or
Yeah, I think it's continue to post.
we'll continue to post on that then?
What happens if it expires before we get
They
reappointed?
serve until they're reappointed.
Okay.
Next, we have two public hearings, and public hearing, the first one, I'd have to open the public hearing. Have a motion to open the public
Motion to open the public hearing.
Seconded.
Public hearing, all in favor, aye? on the
Aye.
motion? The first public hearing is public entertainment license application. Richard George, 83 Columbia Avenue, Jamestown, Rhode Island, applicant, to hold on the front lawn, Oak Harbor Village, 567 South County Trail, Exeter, Rhode Island. 1, classic car cruise nights with disc jockey, Monday evenings, April 1st, 2019 through October 7th, 2019, from 3:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And 2, car show Sunday, July 21st, 2019, and a rain date of Saturday, August 3rd, 2019. That will run from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Do you have anybody here to speak to that?
I'd like to speak to it. I'm Richard George, and we've been doing this for
Richard
years
George.
now.
What's your last name again?
George,
George, Richard George? Yes.
oh, you want me to come up there? Or do you want me
If you
to?
can speak from there, if you can speak loud enough.
I will do that, so I don't have to crawl over everyone. But, we've been doing that show for a few years now. Last year, we didn't do it because the property was sold, and we wanted to wait for the new owner to come on board. It's been a successful thing, I think, for the town as well. It's a good activity, a lot of people come to it. The car, people love it, and it's good for the business people that have the restaurants and so on and so forth there, so they get some business out of it. It's a good cruise and a good show, and I think it doesn't cause any problems at all. And certainly, everybody likes it, that I know of. And so if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer anything you might have.
Anybody else wish to speak? Discussion on the board?
I think it's a great opportunity and a good family event, and there's no other discussion, and the vote is appropriate. I move that we approve the license. Oh, I'm sorry.
Close the public hearing.
Yeah. Anybody else? What's up?
I have one thing. There's $104.96 owing in advertising and certified mailing fees.
You want that right now, or would you?
When you pick up the license, if it's approved, when you pick it up.
Okay, thank you.
So, if you make the motion subject to.
Subject.
payment.
I'll move that we approve the license subject to the appropriate fees being repaid to the town.
I'll second that.
Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we close, well, we should close the public hearing.
close the public hearing first.
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now the motion to approve.
Yes, move that we approve it again.
As a,
Subject to
Subject to
the
the-
appropriate fees being paid.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Second public hearing we have is for the outdoor entertainment license application, Gerald Zarella, Senior, 20 Gerald's Farm Drive, Exeter, Rhode Island, applicant to hold a friend's wedding outdoors approximately August or September on his property. Is anybody here to speak to that?
Here, Mr. Chairman.
Make the motion that we open the public hearing.
Second.
So approved, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so approved. All right, we have 3 people signed up. Is this the right one? Yeah. Patrick Flood? Yep. Is it?
My name is Patrick Flood. I live on 81 Stony Lane in Exeter. Quite a distance from the venue. Not as close as other neighbors, I can only imagine. The last 2 weddings that were allowed because of sympathy, I didn't enjoy my backyard. Sleep with the windows shut, loud music, that's all I heard. He was told no, no means no. It's not a good area for it. People leaving a wedding venue, had a few drinks, driving down a narrow road that everybody walks on. It's a nice, quiet neighborhood. It's not something that's needed in the neighborhood. That's all I got to say.
Next is Diane Lynch.
Hi, I'm Diane Lynch. Thank you for public hearing. I live at 1400 South Road, which is a property that abuts Mr. Zarella's property. We have lived there for about 13 years with our family. We have about 80 acres. About 40 acres of that is pasture land, active pasture land, and there's some woods. I'm actually opposed to this license for 2 reasons. One is, as Mr. Flood said, it is a very quiet rural neighborhood. My family moved there because it was quiet, and it's 3 big lots that are farm, forest, and open space, and they're kind of protected. Many of our neighbors have lived there for 30, 40 years. They moved there because it was quiet, there's no sidewalks, there's very little traffic. They're retirees or they have young families. And this wedding event is very, very loud, and it brings a lot of traffic, or it has in the past. So it's really out of character with the neighborhood. In addition, because the weddings take place in the middle of this sort of 100 acres of 100 acres of hayfields, the sound travels really quickly. The tent is open, it's very loud, it goes late into the night. We are not talking about a small tent behind your house with 30 people and maybe a little quiet music. That's not what these weddings have been. They've been large and they've been loud public amp systems. So it really is a quality of life and neighborhood situation. As Pat said, you have to close your windows, you can't sit outside. The second aspect of that is public safety. So in the past, with some of these weddings, there are a lot of people driving around. Narrow lane is very twisty, South Road is very twisty, they're narrow, they're not very well lit. We've had to barricade our driveway because a dozen people would come up the driveway, you know, through kids and dogs. They're lost, they can't find the place, we have to say, no, it's not here. But that's happening to me, it may be happening to other neighbors as well. I haven't discussed that with him, but that's been a piece of it as well. So a lot more traffic than the roads can handle, and people coming around sort of not knowing where they're going. And that's really what I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Lynch?
Hi, I'm Jim Lynch. As my wife said, my concerns are first public safety. There are weddings, a few hundred people. In the summer, people are out walking their dogs, riding their bikes. You add alcohol on the top of that, and you have real risk to the town, risk to people there. So that's the first one, is public safety. And we have had incidents in Exeter where people have been injured and worse than that, because they were out at night walking their dog and bad things happen. The second issue is liability. Is, God forbid something were to happen, there would be liability to the town, to you all, and that would be an expense, both for in defending the town as well as defending yourselves. So I'm very much opposed to the weddings.
Does anybody else speak to this?
Yes. Robert Smith, 1395 South Road. Would you like to hear what it sounds like? The weddings?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. I have them right here. I can let you listen to it. This was one night going way back when. This is on my front porch. I live across the street. This is 11 o'clock at night. I don't know if you'd like to listen to that. This is quiet, my phone's not that loud. Okay?
True.
But this just keeps on going. And there were, it's probably about 4 minutes of recording here. I'm not gonna bore you with the whole thing over here, but it's very annoying. I moved to East Greenwich 40 years ago. That was a farm across the street. Bill Reynolds owned that farm over there. It was very quiet, very peaceful. It was a very nice neighborhood. Times have changed as we go by over here. It's really changed. Not for the better, I don't think, sometimes. I think whatever Jerry's done over there has been fantastic. It looks beautiful. He's done a beautiful looking job. But as far as entertainment over there, it's a real neighborhood. It's a neighborhood for houses, not for a business. My brother lived down the street. He was running a business in his backyard. He was closed down. It was a little wood shop. He never bothered anybody, never made any noise, never did anything, and he was closed down. This here's annoying. So, I'm not the only one that heard it. There's several other people that have heard this. This has been going on for how many years? 4 years, 5 years now? When is it ever gonna stop?
Thank you.
Nobody's got the answer for that, huh? Thank you.
Anybody else to speak to this?
Nobody else says anything, Mr. President, I have a question.
Sure.
Can you just sign up? Or would you just like me to speak?
You can speak, just state your name.
Okay, Frank Marr, 195 Glen Rock Road. I think the application, Mr. President, and members of the council, is rather vague. It says approximately August or September. I mean, I remember the date that I was married. Most people, when they get married, they have a specific date in mind. I just think out of basic courtesy for the town and for the property abutters, if there's an outdoor license that's gonna be considered or granted, there should be a specific date that should be on the application, in my opinion. The other comment, or question that I have is, as you well know, Mr. President, the years you spent on the planning board, under amusements and entertainment, Article 4, public entertainment, Section 6-121, license required. There's a paragraph B, upon receipt of the application for new or expanded public entertainment license, an advertisement should be placed once in the local newspaper by the town clerk at the applicant's expense, providing notice to the public of the council date on which the public hearing will be held. Obviously, that has occurred. But it also says in the last sentence that the date of the hearing by the town clerk should also be notified to the abutters within a 200-foot radius of the premises in which the new or expanded entertainment is to occur. So this isn't a question that's necessarily directed to the clerk, because she always does her due diligence, as you know. But I'm just kind of curious as to whether the abutters have been properly notified about this hearing.
Andy,
I was not notified.
anybody else that's in the butter?
We are abutters and we were notified, but I can say that the other abutter is a family that just moved in about a year
Speak
ago.
up, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I can say that the other abutter is a family that just moved in about a year ago. They bought Mr. Duran's property and they did not receive one, and I assumed it was because maybe the notice had gone to Mr. Duran. So I think that might have just been a clerical issue, but I know they didn't receive one.
Do you know where the notice came? Where did your notice come from?
It was a certified letter from the town of Exeter.
We need to put them up to the 200.
200-foot radius.
Can I address, Mr. Chairman?
Stand up and address, have name yourself.
My name's Charles Torello, I live at 1 Gerald's Farm Drive. I think I'm the only one here that lives in Exeter. I think the Lynches live in East Greenwich. I believe you live in North Kingston.
Nope, Exeter.
You do?
Yeah.
And I believe you live in
East
East
Greenwich.
Greenwich.
I do.
No, actually, I live in Exeter, I live in both.
Yeah.
You got an illegal pool in Exeter. We don't have a house on it, but you don't live there.
Jerry, you're off topic.
No, I'm on topic because you're off topic. You're off topic.
I don't think so, sir.
Don't speak to each other, please,
Okay.
speak to the.
I don't really know why I'm here. I sent a letter out in December I just want to be very careful and cautious because of situations we've had. I've been in a court, I won a few in court, and I lost a few in court. So I just wanted to send a letter, and I couldn't get a response. And that was in December. He needed to book a date ahead of time. So if you book a date ahead of time, you've got to give a deposit, non-refundable. I couldn't give him a date because I couldn't get an answer. This is a private party. This is not a commercial venture. I'm making no money on it. I'm letting somebody use my land. I'm here for an entertainment permit because they told me I have to come here. What happens if you had a birthday party and you brought a singer over? For the little children, these little people are going around singing, do they have to get an entertainment permit? When the Lynches did their graduation party, and that thing that you had sounds awful familiar, because that's what I remember from the Lynches party.
No, it's not from Lynch's, I can tell you that right now.
My weddings, none of them ever went after 10 o'clock. And we had former chief of police in East Greenwich monitor the music and the sound. So I guess my question is, if I'm here, does anybody who's gonna have a private party has to come here? Is there somebody who's gonna have a graduation party, they gotta come here? I don't know under, and I'm sure the solicitor's gonna look it up, I don't know what regulation I'm here for. It's a private party. It's my home, it's a private party. I pay over $40,000 a year in taxes. Like I said, there's only 2 of us that live here in Exeter. I mean, I should be given some consideration It's a private party, that any one of these members in this audience could have a party. But if you bring a singer in, you have a birthday party, you bring in a singer for, you know, the little kids' party or something, they gotta come here. I think you got precedent going here. It's not a commercial venture. Mr. Solicitor, am I off base?
I answer questions from the
Mr.
council.
Chairman, can you ask the solicitor if I'm off base?
You can have for his opinion if you like.
Yeah, I'd like to have his opinion.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Zarella here not because of the court cases where it was established you can't have a commercial. This
Correct.
is not commercial, I understand that. So this is not governed by the decision of the judge that was in favor of the town. What you're here for is section 611 of the Code of Ordinances. That requires anybody who's having an outdoor recreational, entertainment, cultural event, or a festival to obtain a license. Now that's outdoor entertainment. So, what's going on here is a gathering, even if it's private. But because you're having outdoor projected music, as well as a catered event, this, we believe, falls under the requirement of 611. There is precedent for the town citing people for having similar types of events which they claimed were private, not for cash, but without getting the license. So that's why you're here. You're not here for any of the other stuff. We understand it's not commercial. That would have been absolutely banned. You're here simply because it's an outdoor entertainment. You know, you should be applauded for asking the question, because it's one of the few times that it's been asked of me. And I looked at it carefully, and the only thing that you are subject to is that particular section. And that's, the town council hears that, they've heard them before for outdoor entertainment requests, and their analysis is based upon the testimony and upon public safety issues and the other. But that's generally the way that council reviews these things, so that's why you're here.
I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, whether it's outdoor or indoor, I have a tent, has 4 corners, 4 sides, and how do you decide if it's outdoor or indoor? If it's gonna be inside a tent, it's indoor. I'm gonna be inside a tent, I'm gonna have heat, or I'm gonna have AC. It's not outdoors, I'm under something, I'm under an enclosure. So that's why when I asked in December, I wanted to be a good person, you know, I fought the lynches in their chicken manure, and I won that one. And Mr. Flood, my next door neighbor, sent a thing in here about about a violation I got with DEM, but he didn't send in his,
Because he doesn't have one.
because he just cleaned it up recently.
He never had one. Never, nothing on record, never had one.
So I have what I consider to be the worst neighbors in Exeter. I wish somebody would take them away. I'd give them to you. I'd give them to you, both of them. They could have them. They are the worst people I've ever dealt with. I'm here, and I'm sincere when I'm here. I'm not here for anything else. And I'm just asking that you look at these terrible people, 2 of them, 3 of them, and you look at them, and you say, do they have a right to come from East Greenwich to come to me and say that I can't do something on a $40,000 a year piece of property I paid for? And it's only gonna be 5 hours? If you vote me down, vote your conscience, don't vote because of these people. These are the worst neighbors. You can have them, I'll give them to you.
May I say
With the
something,
chickens
Mr.
too.
President? May I
Is
say
there
something
anybody
else, Mr. President?
Please,
May I say something else, Mr.
yes, you
President?
may.
All due respect, I'm not Mr. Zarella's neighbor. However, there's a historic record of Mr. Zarella having problems with his neighbors in town, okay? Now, I know this because I sat on the town council, I was also a state senator for 4 years. And I remember hearing from constituents complaining about Mr. Zarella and the events that he had on his property. So all due respect to the applicant, he may feel that he's entitled to do this type of event. But you know what? Everybody's entitled to do what they want with their own property until it starts to affect the neighbors around them. Then it's a different story. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, you may speak, yes.
I don't know if I'm correct, but I think the ordinance states you can have a family's wedding on your property. It's not, that's not true? Okay, I thought that's what it was, you can have a family's wedding.
Doesn't say.
Families, okay.
Anybody else? Not hearing anybody else want to speak? Close this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, public hearing is closed. Any discussion?
Mr. Vice President, I am concerned, I value my neighbors. Even sometimes when they're not nice to me, I still value them as neighbors. And I'm concerned about the finger pointing and the name calling. Just don't think it's right. And it was a mention of a family wedding. Maybe I would feel differently if it were a family wedding. But I am skeptical as to whether or not there's going to be some sort of commercial transaction, whether it's above the board or below the board. And so with people coming out in opposition to this, I've been next door to people who have had parties, and I haven't been happy. I've had parties. I always invite my neighbors, just to be on the safe side. And I know a wedding's a little bit different. But I have a problem with this application.
Anybody else? I'm aware that this property and involvement with weddings and public weddings, open weddings, has a history. And I know that's been in court, and there's been issues concerning the same issue about being a commercial enterprise. As far as I'm concerned, I think everybody has a right to do what they want on their property as long as within the regulations. And it's not a problem for their buddy neighbors or anybody else in the jurisdiction. As far as it being inside, being in a tent is not, in my opinion, indoors. Noise is usually the biggest problem, and a tent does not restrict transmission of a lot of noise. And seeing as that there also seems to be multiple weddings going on at this property. From what I hear, this is not the first time, not the second time. I don't know how many times it's been. But I think it's can become a chronic problem for the neighbors. And in my opinion, I think that it's inappropriate to approve this as it is.
We've got this letter about how you weren't gonna be here because you'd be on a cruise, but I understand the dates were mixed up. And that the person who wants to be married isn't gonna be here because they live in Michigan. So you're asking the council to disrupt all of your neighbors for someone from Michigan to come have a wedding here as if that's the most convenient spot? It just doesn't make any sense as to why we would disrupt all of your neighbors in that case. It's not someone from Exeter, the person's not even here to say why they really love your property for any reason, or why they're drawn to your property, or why it makes all the difference in the world for them to be married there. They're just not. We don't have a letter from them, we don't have anything as to why we should allow this. Yet we have multiple neighbors of yours all saying the same thing, that this is very disruptive. I don't see how we could approve that.
Are we ready to vote then? Is there a motion?
I move that we deny the application, Mr. Vice President.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Disproved. Motion passes.
I'd also move to close the public hearing, Mr. Vice President.
We already-
Did we?
Oh, sorry.
Next item is new business. The first item is the proposed revisions to the council bylaws and possible action. That's something that I was presenting for consideration. And what I would hope to do is to move number 12, the bills appropriations and abatements, to number 6 under the consent agenda. And also to change the letters as they're written in the bylaws to numbers which are actually used on the agendas. Discussion on that? Want to move number 12, which is the appropriations and abatements to the consent agenda, in order to help speed up the conduct of the council meetings. Any discussion on that?
You can just pull it the same way. From 6 to
Yes, you
1.
can.
Yeah, you can still pull it.
So it's a motion to change the council bylaws, right?
Change the council
Section
bylaws.
113, keep that
Right.
in order.
To move number 12, the bills and abatements, put it under the consent agenda.
And also to change the letters to.
And to change the letters that are indicated in the bylaws to numbers, because that's how it's done on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Exactly, he wants to change it, so it's numbered instead of ordered.
Yep.
Correct, Frank, that, in
Right.
section
Business.
113, you want the letters
Change the numbers to, yeah,
so
to
that
match
it
the
coincides
agenda.
with the agenda.
May I say something, please? I know Cal had mentioned making some changes to the bylaws last meeting or the meeting before. I thought we were gonna look at them globally and make changes all at once. I don't know if we're gonna be making more changes or Cal's gonna be making more changes, and my suggestion would be if we're going to make changes, we make them all at once rather than piecemeal. I don't know if you have any feelings on that.
I think the one, I don't recall what, one that Cal was considering, but I think once we looked at it, it was a new point that it didn't require a change.
Okay.
It was already covered in the bylaws. And quite frankly, I don't see any of ones coming up at this point in time, so I just assume
Okay?
get this done.
We can still pull it.
All right. Sure.
Do we need a motion for that?
To,
You all set?
To change the bylaws?
Yes.
You did.
I make a motion, move that we do as you suggested, Mr. Vice President.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. That's unanimously approved. Second item on the agenda is the annual proposed modifications to the official street map for the town of Exeter. Steve, could you,
Yeah, there's some minor misalignments and like cul-de-sacs that were not shown on the map. Certain roads like Levitt Lane doesn't show the cul-de-sac, as well as Connector Road was not lined up with the town property line the way it should be, corresponding with North Kingston, which makes a state section of road not shown. So it's just basically just realigning to correct some minor things. It's nothing that would require a public hearing. Simple print errors on the map.
do we need a motion for that?
Accept it.
Do I have a motion to approve the annual proposed modifications to the official street map for the town of Exeter?
Make that motion, Mr. Vice President.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. The second item is the proposed amendments to the Exeter Code of Ordinances, Chapter 38, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Article 2, Streets, Division 3, Official Street Map, Section 38-106, Buildings Not on Mapped Streets. And Steve, could you address that as well?
Yeah, as I was looking at the map, we found a bunch of spots around town, West Shore Drive, and, I mean, basically all corners of the town. 10 different spots I found, where there's roads shown on the map, they're not roads for real. They're, say Widow Suites, for instance, it was a road at one point, but the town of West Greenwich abandoned their section, so now it's a dead end. The road dead ends at the town line. Well, the town property does, not the road. The road doesn't go that far. So and then there's, in West Shore Drive, in Boone Lake, same way, there's 6 or 8 house lots that have no road. And then Industrial Drive, like I said, there's 10 of them, I gave you maps for all of them.
Right.
Around town, and they all have no street, just Matt Street, but it's not a street at all.
Physically, not.
Physically, no road. It's not maintained, it's, most of them are woods, some of them aren't, some of them are old paths. So all these do require public hearing and more information. There'll be some better numbers provided as far as distances, actual, and I can actually wield them. Snow obviously is the biggest factor right now for that. So we have approximate measurements from Google Earth right now that we're using in some of our maps. But that's just to get you all the information up front so you know what we're looking at. So there will be some slight modifications to the numbers when it comes to public hearing.
I assume you want to go to public hearing.
It has to, yeah, it has
Are you ready to go to public hearing?
to. Just as long as the snow melts the next few weeks, we'll be fine. Just to be more accurate on the map, that's all.
Okay.
Other than that, it's just in general. You can just say plus or minus.
Well, this will require a public hearing, so that it'll have to be advertised. Do I have a motion to, do I have a?
I don't think so.
Do we,
Steve, haven't looked at the state law recently on that. Does that require specific notice to butters?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We didn't do it last time.
Okay.
We've done this many times over the years and we've never notified a butter.
All right, so you need, what, 30 days at least to put it together?
Yeah. Even if you went till May, it's fine with me. There's no stress in it at all. Whatever
I
time we need.
suggest that you put it out
Yeah,
to a
it's fine
point
with me.
where we can make sure that we have the correct.
Like I said, I like these semi-accurate numbers for you. You know, some of the widths we can't, but the lengths we can be pretty accurate on. So.
I'll make a motion to add this to the May agenda,
Public hearing.
public hearing.
second it?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Will be continued to the next meeting. April.
May.
Okay.
May, will you make it?
May 2nd.
Third May.
Item D is congratulatory letter to Rhode Island State Police Superintendent James Manning, who was just appointed to the position. And that was something that President Ellis suggested that we send a letter of congratulation to Chief Manning. And I think that would be good in light of having been good to see at least down the line, we might as well be on good terms. Best terms we can. So I'll make a motion that send a letter to James Manning.
Seconded.
Any discussion on that?
No.
All in favor?
Okay, may I make an amendment to that? And perhaps we can include in the letter that we look forward to meeting and working with him in the not-too-distant future, just to let him know that we want to get together. So not just congratulatory, but let's get together.
All in favor of that, with the amendment proposed by Councilman Manning?
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Second, who seconded that?
So thank
You
you.
made, Frank made it.
I made the motion.
You're gonna, okay, you're gonna,
There's two items on here that I've requested. One, item E is a request to the planning board to appoint a liaison to the North Kingston Preserve Rolling Greens project. I'd like to have someone from the planning board also assist in that liaison work. And the other one is a request, we can do this as one motion for the both of them. The other one is a request to the planning board for an appointment to a liaison to the Exeter Rural Land and Trust Commission Committee. Make that a motion.
All right, I'll second.
Any discussion?
Speaker Gordon, can I just make sure we're clear? As you know, there's a town council representative.
Yes, and that's me.
You're the one. So this will be an assistant to you.
Assistant.
You will still be the point person for the town,
Yes.
so that there's no confusion when they get over there as to who gives the official word. It will
Right.
be the town council liaison.
Right, the town council.
For the town in general. The planning board liaison could say what the planning board's position is on.
Right.
But only you, as the town council designee, would be the person
Correct.
to espouse the town's position.
But then I
Correct.
can come back
Right.
and inform the planning board of what one.
Just so we're straight, so we
Right.
know the pecking order.
I'm thinking of doing it primarily as a way to coordinate between the council and the planning board directly. But yes, I will remain the point man for that position. All in favor?
Aye.
Vote is unanimous, and the clerk will send a memo to the planning board for, to appoint two people. It can be,
point,
it could be the two people, I leave that up to the decision of the planning. It could be the same person, it could be the same person for each position. It could be two individual people, one for each position. I would leave that to the planning board.
There are two. There are two, E and F, you're saying.
E and F,
Well,
yes.
In other words, I think what Frank's saying is that they can appoint one to each. They could be different people, or they can appoint the same person to be the representative.
Right. Under unfinished business, we have the trailer park license renewal, Split Rock Mobile Home Park, Elmer H. and Richard Palmer applicant for a sub-county trail. I believe that there's still, from we've received from the building inspector, electrics, but there's still some work to be done, but it's not 100%.
Just so you know, I can fill you in on a bit of it. I contacted the attorney for Split Rock. He had been very helpful in the past. He did basically swing into action, had his client, told his client about the concerns and relayed the letter again to him. The client apparently arranged for the electrician to go out there. Then there was some misinterpretation as to what work needed to be done. The electrician thought he had completed everything. I believe there was a misinterpretation there. And so my understanding is that the electrician was to meet once again with our inspectors and straighten it out. But they were moving toward it. The question is whether, and I haven't received an official response yet from the inspectors as to whether or not all of the matters that were requested in the town council notice to them have been completed. It could be that there are some items now that were found that had not been addressed, but were not in the notification letter. And the attorney wanted to see whether or not, in that case, we could just simply inform them as to exactly what it was that needed to be done, and not keep the license in suspension during that period of time, because he felt that they had approved, they had taken care of the So I think we were waiting for something to come back from the inspectors on that.
We have one letter from Ron that says they fixed it, they just fixed it at the wrong house.
They then went back again, and
Okay.
there was another, they actually met again after that. And that's my understanding from the attorney, and there were discussions as to what needed to be done. And it was the attorney's interpretation at that point, that everything that was asked for in the letter that the council sent was done, but there were other things that were apparent that had not been completed that needed to be completed. So that was the question. We just wanted, the attorney was asking to ask the council to issue the license, and then subject, once again, to these new things being done. But I haven't heard back directly from the inspector as to what his position is on that, so you can do what you wish with it, but it seems to me like at least another month to see that those things are all straightened out would be in order without.
It seems them not having the license is the only thing pushing the
Yeah, I don't know, it could be, but I'll tell you this.
repairs.
Paul Bogosian is the lawyer, and every time we have ever contacted him, he's gotten things done. So I'd say it could be not having the license as part of it, but also I credit the lawyer with whenever there's been a problem. He's generally got it done. It hasn't generally been quite as quickly as councils have wanted, but he has always been very responsive, so that's been the history I've had with that particular lawyer. Good. Eventually clearing it up.
I suggest that we do continue this to the next meeting where we have Cal and Dan here who have more experience and history with this problem, with that decision.
I agree with you. It's my brief time on the council, it seems like it's tantamount to pulling teeth to try to get this done. And I would continue one more month. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we continue this to the next meeting.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Hopefully we'll hear from the inspectors as to if there is and what needs to be done and what their recommendation would be. Yeah, thank you.
The next item is media coverage, and I know that Cal was talking with the Standard Times.
You mean the North Kingstown Times?
No, the Standard Times.
You know how many articles in there about Exeter?
But at any rate, and I think when Cal did talk, he did show up for one meeting, do we have a reporter here tonight? We didn't have one the last time either, I don't
Yes,
think.
you did, I think there was one.
He was, the last couple he was here.
Yeah, he was here.
And he sent me an email looking for information, contact information. I assume the other council members got it. And he said there was gonna be an
Ken
article.
took care of that, right?
Yeah, he's all set though, I verified with him.
Okay.
Well, I don't think there's any action that we can take on that, other than we can just keep pressing that we get some kind of coverage. Although things with the newspapers look bleak on all fronts. Next item is historic preservation cemeteries. I don't think we have anything on that at this point in time.
The only thing was the donation for the cemetery fund. I don't know if we resolved that issue.
Never got back to us with any information.
So we'll leave that for the next meeting. Impact fee study update, we received something, can you talk that, Ken?
The comments that were received were sent to the consultant, and right now they're gonna put together a proposal to bring to the town council.
So we'll be waiting for their proposal.
There's still decisions that have to be made by the council.
Right, once we get that, once we get his final report.
Did they say when they have it?
It shouldn't be too, I think he tries to time his meetings when it comes around.
Okay, so that, continue to the next meeting. Introduction, consideration, and possible action on ordinance regulating certain secondary agricultural uses and activities.
Mr. Vice President, that one's being held in abeyance. That was to be, actually, that item, you might consider taking off. What that was for was so that we can react quickly if there was legislation at the State House that would interject new uses into certain zones. And that was Mr. Patterson's matter. So nothing has happened, to my knowledge, at the State House this year. Last year, it looked like there might have been some activity, but nothing came to fruition. That's why we had that on there. So this one, if I suggest that you keep it on there until the end of the session at least. But that's why there's nothing. This one keeps getting continued. That's the history to it. We were ready to move if there was legislation that came in that required it.
Well, I agree. I think we should leave it on at least till we have Dan back sitting at the table. So he's more familiar with the issue, and he should be involved in any decision on removing it. So, transfer station status, nothing on that.
We received an excellent report, inspection by DM once again. That's about it.
Workplace harassment training, anything happen on that, Lynn, as far as?
No, we're gonna go to work session with that at some point.
Okay. Then we have the January communications concerning tax treaties. Are those, I assume those are.
As you might recall, those are the communications from Green Energy. They had a number of proposals on tax treaty that was linked basically to the ordinance that has just been revised. So I had written after this, I initially sent an email to Mr. Mancini, who was representing Green. I wrote again to him after this last meeting in February, suggesting that because we had worked on language to be presented to the town council. The communications that were presented to you in those communications that are stated in letter H were the first draft without any reaction to the comments that I had put in. And so I wrote to Mr. Mancini saying, are you going to make those suggested changes or not? Haven't heard anything from him, so.
I'll remove it until they respond.
You absolutely, you can do that, sure.
So we'll keep this on the agenda.
Let's remove it.
Think it's-
You
They
can
haven't
if you wish.
responded at all.
There hasn't been yeah, if there's a response, quite frankly, it'll come in and I could give it under report. And at that point, we would basically consider whether or not to enter into a tax treaty or to waive, as you have in the past, with other applications. Remember, Green, if these applications are found to have properly been put in during the period of the applicability of the Green Energy Ordinance, then it was on the premise that the tax treaty will be entered into with certain incentives. You'll all recall that. If it's found that these applications are not going to be viewed under the terms of the Green Energy Ordinance, but would be either under the new ordinance now or the prior Green, the one before Green, then you might wish to waive the tax treaty requirement entirely.
And you would send the revision, or the revisions to the language twice, right?
I had requested them once before, and I sent it in writing the second time. That was basically to make sure that we were on the same wavelength.
Right.
And that's the letter, you should have that letter in the February materials that were sent to you as I sent them out.
So if this should come back to life, it'll probably come back under a communications back.
I would think so, or a communication to me, at which point I would bring it to your
Right.
attention, as I always do. when those things come through.
Okay. When we responded.
Yeah, I could respond under my report or executive session.
All right, so then this can be removed then, I think.
I don't see why not, you can, whatever you choose.
Do we have a motion for that?
If you're gonna remove it, I would.
I'll make a motion to remove it until we make some sort of response.
Until we get, right. I'll second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. January communication number 13, Wood Pawcatuck Wild and Scenic Rivers, the appointment of a representative. Still no one has stepped forward. I've talked with people at the rural land trust, and no one has stepped forward there or the planning board, so I don't know if we, I guess we can keep this on here, as hopefully that we'll get some response.
And we-
But we have no response. Pilot legislative initiative status, I think Dan usually requested on that, and so Dan's not here, so I don't think we're gonna get a report tonight. So we'll move on. Then we have introduction, consideration, and possible action for proposed amendments to the Exeter Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, zoning Article 1, administration procedures, Section 1.3.E, general provisions, variances, and Sections 1.3.F, general provisions for special use permits. I think this was something that was requested by the zoning board for clarification in the zoning ordinance, and I believe we had sent that to the planning board for an advisory opinion back to the council, and I think they sent us something back that they have no problem with that proposed amendment. So I would make a motion that we put it out for notification and for a public hearing.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved unanimously?
Is that gonna be, April?
Yeah.
That'll be for you, yeah. The other one is request for proposals, information management support services. I know we're having a lot of IT problems, it's been going on for quite some time. The hole seems to be getting deeper and deeper instead of, so what's the status on that, Ken?
March 1st was the deadline for comments and questions from those vendors, and we didn't receive any. Lynn was contacted by about maybe over a dozen, easy.
Easy, dozen to 20. Different companies have contacted me for the specifications. I've met with 3 of the companies. One was for an hour and a half on Friday. They were here and we discussed our issues, what we're looking for. So I'm hoping to hear from somebody for the bid opening.
The bids are due March 22nd.
Yep.
Lynn, what was the problem with the emails? I did get a call from Stefan Kudalakis, who said that he was unable to send any EMA emails, and I know you and I communicated, and you had some problems. Has that been resolved? And
So Cox is our email provider, and they have decided that group emails over 150 cannot be sent out. So Stefan has a huge group email for his emergency notifications. I have the email for the town council notifications. So when we both sent last week, they didn't go anywhere. Some got through, some didn't, and it all bounced all around and back. And so Cox decided to change this, no notification, I love it. So we've both had to take those group emails and
Slice
break
them
them
up.
down to 4 or 5. I think he's up to 6 or 7 or something. I'm up to 4 to break it all down. So I have to sit down and break it all up. So next time we send out notices, it should go through. But that's all part of changing the whole, over
Okay,
the IT.
So I
We're
assume
gonna
once
change
we-
our, we're gonna change Outlook to,
Okay.
Office 365. And then we'll consider whether we're gonna stay with Cox or change to Verizon.
obviously, it's unacceptable
That's
to
the slant.
have
Yeah.
that, and you guys shouldn't have to send out 4 or 5
Yeah.
different emails
Yeah.
with everything else that you do.
Cox is having a real problem. About a month ago, we had a lot of problems with ones coming back that indicated they were undeliverable. Some were undeliverable, they didn't go anywhere, but some, the person got them anyway, but we were getting notification that they were undeliverable, a lot of them. They sort of fixed that problem. So I contacted Cox and told them, look, this is the problem, do you know about this? Yeah, we're aware, and if you're gonna change providers, we understand. Got that note today. And then today, I was trying to send an email to Mr. Natalie 3 times. It's in my sent box. It says it's sent, but he never received it.
I will, you know when I got them?
Jim got one immediately.
I did get them.
When?
About an hour and a half after you sent them.
I've seen, someone told me Pat sent them something at 1 o'clock in the morning last week. So,
She's up late.
yeah, I didn't, she, I guess, she's here overtime, I don't know. No. So there's been some struggles.
We're addressing those issues with James Angie,
Yeah.
so he's on top of it, he understands the situation.
Okay.
There's guidance in the right direction.
So if you didn't get the agendas, I apologize, but hopefully next time you will. I had no way of knowing who got one and who didn't.
I guess that covers that.
Well, if you wanna go one more further, just on the review panel for, we have to review these RFPs that are coming in. So, James said he would do it.
You would assist?
He would assist, I would do it. Suppose Lynn will do it, and Maria. Back there. Yes, she said yes. So I didn't know if you wanted to, just have us assign, or you wanna vote to say that's the review panel, and maybe a council member. But you're gonna be reviewing at least 20 documents, hopefully. And then there might be an interview process. So I didn't know if you wanted the 4 of us and then a council person.
Do we need to make a motion on that? You've been talking with James Angie right along,
Right.
and consulting with the treasurer.
If you're fine with the 4 of us, then,
Yeah, it's fine.
And then just bring us with.
the recommendation.
Yeah.
Would you rather have a council member?
No, if you wanna do the work, it doesn't really matter, it's just
Okay.
scoring, the scoring.
Tell them the truth, Kerry, no.
You know?
All right.
You work on it.
All right, moving on, the reports of all reports and committees, town council assistance report, Ken?
Now, I'm just gonna ask that if everybody's available next Monday, the 11th, for the work session. No, we'll just start, have a preliminary conversation about the budget and how the process works. I might will have to get to go in earlier or later.
Take a quick note, sir.
Yeah. It's not like. So, Monday night at 7 o'clock here.
Yeah.
And then, all the budget requests were sent out. Really haven't received that many yet.
That'd be a work session.
There'll be a work session. But we'll go through the process and bring in calendars, because we can establish a schedule for the budget hearings.
Solicitor's report?
Yeah, most of the items were covered in other agenda items. I have nothing for executive session that I can think of. I will give you an update very quickly on green energy. As you might recall, there was quite a bit of activity on that last month, tremendous amount of activity on that last month. The parties briefed the matter. The judge heard testimony, and that was over about 3 days last month. And he has reserved decision, and I believe he's working on a decision on the preliminary injunction. So, that's what we're awaiting. I'll let you know as soon as that comes in, obviously, but nothing yet. The only other matter that really I can bring you up to date on, as far as litigation goes, is the Arcadia Park case. That's been moving along. We received a notice from the Supreme Court, there's going to be what's called a pre-briefing conference on it, which is where the judge, duty judge usually decides whether the matter goes to full briefing or just an abbreviated show cause hearing. So, everybody's awaiting that because it's an important, very important question as to what the proper procedure is when the state wishes to implement the use or place a building on town property, whether they have to go through the local procedures or simply do what they want. So that's the update on those two pieces of litigation. Other than that, nothing further.
Okay, okay, the rest is C, reports removed from the consent agenda. I believe there were just 2 items removed, if I recall. One was from the tax collector, and the other was one for the North Kingston Preserve Rolling Green project. I know the tax collector had wanted a motion to accept. You'll have to remind me because I can't find the paper, and I had 2 of them.
The tax sale list.
Tax sale list, to approve the tax sale list, which is confidential information at this point in time. But you would like a motion for the council to.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve it.
Second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. The other one was just, gonna give a quick report on the North Kingston Preserve Rolling Greens. I attended the, North Kingston, Town Council meeting last week, as the representative from the council on that project. And the council had approved the consent agenda to settle on a mediated settlement concerning the Rolling Greens and the amount of square footage to be allowed for the preserve of Rolling Greens. They initially had set it at 10,000 square feet. Forget the date, but back maybe about a year ago. And they would to give them 26,000 square feet, which won't include the clubhouse or any home business type units. That's something that I had testified to and objected to the fact that they had increased the amount of square footage from what it had originally been agreed to by the town council to a previous zoning amendment. And they sent it back, they're sending it back to the planning commission preliminary review approval. And that's where that stands right now. I had prepared a letter in response to that action, which I was considering having the council send, but I think in light of my commentary, I think I had covered that already at the North Kingston meeting. So I just wanted to update the council on the status of that situation. Those are the 2 items on the consent agenda. Next is communications. And we have several polls. And I think we'll start with Manny. You had poll.
Get to 12 first.
Did I miss something?
Yep, number 12. Number 12.
At Peak House Pool.
This one. Item 12,
Well, the bills and proceeds and abatements, yes.
tax collector's rate.
Right.
That has to,
That's the
that was
motion.
cool. Yeah.
We have to do individual motions this month, but next month it'll be under the consent.
Yeah, under the consent agenda, so there has to be done individual for each
Tonight
item?
it has to be done individually.
For each item?
Tonight, yes.
All right, I'll make a move, do I have a motion to approve the bill sheet?
I'll make a motion to approve the bill sheet.
Seconded.
All in favor, any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, bill sheet passes. The tax assessors abatements, a motion to approve.
I'll move that we approve the abatement.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. And tax collectors and remittances and abatements,
There were no abatements, just remittances.
just remittances.
I'll move that we approve the,
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it passes unanimously. We have other administrative issues, nothing under that. We go to communications. And we have several quotes, I think one by Manning, number 5.
yes. So number 5 for the folks that are here is a printout from the State of Rhode Island Department of Revenue, and it basically compares the salaries of town employees throughout the state. And I wish there was somehow that I could make what I'm gonna say possible so everyone in the town hears it. But I want you people here to know that your town employees work very, very hard. I've been on the town council for 3 or 4 months. I am incredibly impressed with Director Matt Sakshek, with the clerk, with the treasurer, and you should all be applauded. And when you look at the salaries that these folks are making, they are on the low end of the totem pole for all state employees. And if they were making 50% more than what their salaries are now, I'd still say that they work incredibly hard for their money. And so I just wanted to say a public thank you to the 3 employees that are here now, Steve, Lynn, and Maria, and to everyone else who's a town employee. And I'm hoping that in the not too distant future, we can do something to make their salaries more commensurate with their other colleagues throughout the state, because they are really, really underpaid for what they do. Thank you.
I have to say that I agree with him, and I've been involved in the town on the planning board primarily for almost 20 years, and the zoning board before that. And I've seen the effort and the work ethic that's put in by everybody that works in this town hall, and including all the appointed and elected officials that we've had in the past as well. And they're all underpaid, and they're all dedicated to serving the town of Exeter. And I think they do deserve our money, and when we work with the budget, we'll try to accommodate some improvement on that area, but I don't know how much we're gonna be able to do, but at least we'd like them to know that we do appreciate what they do for us.
Yes. Thank you. And we appreciate the comments.
All right, you're up, 22.
Well, 422 and 31, we kind of already covered.
Oh, yeah, those are the appointments.
Yeah. 29 was a letter from Scott Millar regarding parties and fires and trash.
Is Scott here?
Scott is here.
I am.
Scott, you wanna address that communication you sent to us?
If I may. It's an issue that's been going on for quite a few years on the Nature Conservancy's property. There's been illegal fires, illegal dumping of trash, some hazardous materials. I know DEM had to go up there in the past. So on behalf of a lot of people that live in the area, we were just going to ask the town council if we could perhaps have a meeting with the Nature Conservancy, the Raccoon Hunters Club, and talk about the possibility of trying to perhaps abandon some of that currently unimproved road. It would really help and put up a gate that would prevent unauthorized vehicles from entering that property. I think it's at some point in time, especially as we get into the spring, the fires, they've been starting fires for parties, leaving them lit all night long. When I frequently walk that area, they're still smoldering the next morning. That's just totally unacceptable, very disrespectful. Would create a major wildfire that our local firefighters would really struggle to try to contain. So certainly something needs to be done. So we're just requesting a meeting with all parties to talk about what the options might be.
Is there any policing of the property at all, or monitoring?
We've contacted the state police from time to time, but as you know, their capacity is limited. This is up about a quarter mile on an unimproved, very rugged road, so they're, I think, reticent to drive up there on a regular basis. I've had conversations with Richard Brown when he was the town sergeant. He agrees, he's been called to that area a number of times over the years. He concedes it's a problem. I know that Nature Conservancy has talked to the local fire chief. He's very concerned, obviously, about people starting fires and leaving them all night. I know Steve doesn't have, his staff doesn't have the resources to maintain that road. It's currently an unimproved town road. You pass at your own risk. But if some kind of, perhaps, officially abandoning the road might be an option to consider.
Scott, who owns either side of the road?
The Nature Conservancy does.
Owns both sides of the road?
Yes.
So if an abandonment were to occur, then the Conservancy would also own the bed of the road?
That's correct.
No longer be a public highway?
Right. I have discussed that possibility with them. Obviously, their concern would be to continue a legal access for the Raccoon Hunters Club that's currently there. So that's why they should be involved in any discussions of potentially abandoning.
They then would be able to gate off the road because it would be a private access only.
So most of the, I would assume what your suggestion is that most of the people that are in there violating the property are coming in on vehicles, they're not...
That's correct, they're coming in on vehicles, yeah. They've already done a lot of vandalism to the Raccoon Hunters Club. They've destroyed their gate, done a lot of damage up there.
So gating should at least thwart some of them. Should help.
I think that would
Even
be
if
a
you don't
big
abandon
step
that road,
forward.
if you could at least gate it.
You'd probably have to, I would defer to Mr. Maruzak, but I think you'd probably have to abandon the road to physically put up a gate.
It's a good idea, actually, because it takes care of a number of problems, and it also relieves the town of liability and also of maintenance. Somebody's thinking.
So should we send a letter to the Raccoon Hunters and Nature Conservancy and invite everyone to come discuss this at some point?
Why do you wanna go about it?
I make the motion that we notify all of the parties in Mr. Millar's letter and set up a meeting so that we can get together and try to solve this problem. Obviously, it's a problem that needs to be taken care of, and I think it's a good idea by Mr. Millar. So I move that we notify all the parties and set up a meeting so that we can discuss these issues.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you let us know, can you get this, the addresses and everybody of all the parties we need to notify?
Sure.
And the people that we need to notify?
Happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't.
Send it to Lane.
Okay, will do.
What, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'll get you a list of the people that should be notified about the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have no more, you?
So we're not picking a date, is that gonna be a work session? Gonna be a work session?
I'm thinking it probably should be a work session.
I mean, I pick a date and tell them,
Yeah,
see when you guys are available.
yes.
Executive session?
None for me.
No executive session?
I think it's an executive session. I didn't.
Yeah, you have to state what section it would be under for.
I guess the investigative matters.
Okay.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, and we'll have an executive session. I mean, we don't have to leave, and that would be concluding. We can't conclude it until after.
An hour and a half? An hour and a half? What happened to 3 hours?
You didn't bring your,
Well, you didn't have a
hourglass.
What?
You didn't commentary, that's it.
I'm saving,
See what happens?
no, I'm saving that because Calvin's not here.
No, we have.
Now it's 8:25.
Yes.
Well, I found, he told me to bring it, and when he
It's a cosmic convergence.
when did he show up?
You were waiting for public
I thought he was
comment.
gonna spend his time staring at me. So he enjoys it, I gotta tell you something.
You'll have to let them know you set the bar pretty high though for a short meeting.
3? They're usually over 3 hours.
They set the bar really high today, that's gonna.
God.